What if I told you that the reason you are stuck on, like, your biggest project right now isn't because you don't have enough time,
Right.
but actually because you have way too much of it?
Yeah, it completely flips the standard script, on productivity.
It really does. I mean, we constantly negotiate for extensions, right?
Right.
We push deadlines back. We clear our calendars, hoping that a wide open Friday will finally be the day we crack that impossible problem.
Exactly. But according to the materials we're diving into today, giving yourself a massive block of unstructured time is basically the worst possible thing you can do for your brain.
So true. Welcome to today's deep dive, where you, our resident learner, are going to uncover a highly counterintuitive framework.
We are looking at this fascinating stack of diagrams, slide layouts, and really detailed strategy notes.
Yeah, they unpack this concept called creative tension, which comes from Robert Greene's book Mastery.
Right, and the mission today is to figure out how to force genius-level breakthroughs, basically by artificially manipulating your sense of time.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the opening schematic in our sources paints this wild picture.
Oh, the visual of the brain.
Yeah. Imagine your brain, specifically, like the frontal and temporal lobes, physically interlocked with the mechanical gears of a stopwatch.
It's intense.
Very. And that is the exact mental state we are trying to trigger today. But um, before we can understand how to force a breakthrough, we kind of first need to understand the psychological trap that prevents them from happening at all.
Right, the sources call this the infinite time trap.
Yeah, the infinite time trap, which triggers a state they call cognitive diffusion.
When a task lacks a strict timeline, the human brain gets entirely too comfortable.
Right.
And comfortable brains don't innovate, they just, repeat known patterns and diffuse their focus.
Think of your mental energy like a gas in a jar.
Okay.
If you give a task infinite time, that jar is massive. It's like a warehouse. So your energy just diffuses into this giant cloudy mess.
There's absolutely zero pressure.
Exactly. No pressure at all.
The sources actually provide a cognitive operating state matrix that diagnoses this. When we operate with endless or vague time, our focus becomes completely scattered.
Highly linear.
Yeah, linear and scattered. We check one thing, then we check another, slowly, without any real urgency. And our default failure mode becomes over-engineering.
Oh, guilty. I mean, if I have 3 weeks to write a proposal, I will literally spend the first week just tweaking the font.
Exactly. You tinker endlessly because there's no penalty. And while you're doing that, your subconscious remains completely dormant.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how Robert Greene describes endless time as the ultimate enemy of the creative active phase.
What does he say exactly?
I'll quote him directly from the text. He writes, "When you are faced with the slenderest amount of time to reach the end, the mind rises to the level you require. Ideas crowd upon one another."
Ideas crowd upon one another. I love that. It implies the time constraint physically forces disparate thoughts into the same tight space until they basically collide. Which means, since infinite time dilutes our focus, we got to look at how to actively compress that time to force a reaction.
Yes. And this brings us to the dual engine architecture of creative tension. Engine one is called the shock.
The active phase.
Right. And it's not just about setting a Friday deadline on a Monday so you eventually get stressed and stay up late.
Yeah, no, it's way more immediate than that.
It's about using the extreme restriction of time to instantly shock the brain into high gear on the spot. It completely eliminates hesitation.
To bring this out of the abstract, our sources give us this real-world physical engineering scenario, the 20-minute diagnostic challenge.
Yeah, the shop floor stress test.
Right. Picture a mechanic faced with a truck that has a goat's electrical drain.
A nightmare scenario.
Truly. The battery keeps dying, but the flaw is hidden somewhere in miles of complex wiring.
Right, and in the infinite time trap, the mechanic just crawls slowly through the wiring schematics, checking fuse number 1, then fuse number 2.
Right until boredom sets in. But wait, I need to push back on this a little bit.
Okay.
If you tell someone, hey, you only have exactly 20 minutes to find an electrical ghost before the next truck arrives.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just make them panic?
You'd think so, yeah.
I mean, rush. Do a sloppy job. How is sheer panic actually helpful for complex problem solving?
It seems like it would just cause chaos. But that assumes the brain functions the exact same way under pressure as it does at rest, just like faster.
And it doesn't.
Not at all. The neuroscience in the sources shows that when you severely restrict time, your brain perceives a threat. It floods your system with norepinephrine,
Okay.
which basically acts like a biological spotlight. Under intense pressure, the brain actually abandons that slow linear testing.
So it's Stops checking fuses one by one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly views the vehicle as a holistic ecosystem. Hidden associations are instantly forced to the surface.
Like what?
Like maybe a random chassis pattern they noticed 6 months ago, mixed with a passing comment the customer made about an aftermarket accessory.
Oh, wow. So the restriction forces the brain to connect things it normally filters out.
Precisely. It forces rapid-fire associations while you are working.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this hyperactivated state doesn't just apply to diagnosing broken things.
Right. It fundamentally changes how we physically create and build.
Exactly. The sources illustrate this with the scrap bin sprint scenario.
Ah, yeah, the broken conveyor.
Right. So a snap conveyor feeder guide has halted operations on the floor. Everything is down.
If given infinite time, a person would sit at their desk, boot up CAD software, and spend hours over-engineering perfect models.
Obsessing over microclearances.
Right. But in forced mastery, the rule is set. A working modification must be welded onto the machine in exactly 60 minutes.
And the kicker using only the scrap metal pile.
Right. Literally garbage.
So 60 minutes in a scrap pile. What happens?
Well, this sparks immediate creative survival. The brain just bypasses textbook design entirely.
Because it doesn't have time to be a perfectionist.
Exactly. So a discarded bearing casing and a piece of old angle iron instantly click together in the mind.
Just raw geometry.
Right. They form a highly original functional solution because they are under the gun.
And the sources extend this to a macro level too, with a third scenario. Fixing a chaotic workshop flow.
The 5-day lean turnaround.
Yeah. If you vow to fix a chaotic shop sometime this quarter, the problem just stays dormant.
You never do it.
Never. But announcing a 5-day deadline to be 100% operational, that turns every morning into an active puzzle.
The brain aggressively scans the floor, spotting waste, visualizing physical movement simply because the clock is ticking.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the specific tool being used, whether it's a multimeter, a welder, or a clipboard, doesn't matter at all.
It's the constraint.
Yes, the time constraint itself is the universal catalyst for human ingenuity.
But I have to say, constantly shocking the brain is only half the framework, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you cannot run a high-revving engine continuously without it breaking down. I mean, if I'm always in a 20-minute survival sprint, I'm going to burn out by Tuesday.
Yes, and that is why creative tension requires a deliberate cool-down phase to actually synthesize the ideas.
Right, the closed-loop system. So let's talk about Engine 2.
Engine 2, the passive phase.
Okay, so the sources outline phase 1 of this cooldown as conscious exhaustion.
Yes, which sounds contradictory, but it's vital.
First, you establish creative tension. You basically cut your expected deadline in half.
So if you think you have 4 days, you give yourself 2.
Exactly. And then you saturate, you dive deep, you research, and you absolutely do not multitask.
No multitasking.
You push aggressively until you hit a wall. It's like, think of it like putting a block of wood in a heavy steel vice grip.
Okay.
And you're just cranking it until it literally cannot compress anymore. You hit a wall and feel totally mentally blocked.
Right. You are essentially commanding your subconscious that this data matters by putting it under that pressure.
Exactly. So what happens when you finally hit that wall of maximum compression?
That's when you must trigger phase 2. Deliberate disconnection. The release.
Which is so hard to do.
It's incredibly hard. Once you hit that wall, you must trigger the incubation period. You completely stop thinking about the problem.
Turn off the computer.
Turn it off. Do not look at your phone. Transition to a low-effort physical activity, or even better, go to sleep.
Wait, why can't we just push through the wall with more logic?
Because active logic gets in the way. While your conscious mind rests, your subconscious basically takes over as the cook.
The subconscious cook.
Right. It takes all that high-pressure data you just crammed into it and quietly weaves it together.
Connecting distant ideas.
Without your active logic standing there saying, no, those two things don't go together.
So what does this all mean for the listener? We've shocked the brain, we've exhausted it in the vice grip, and we've stepped away to let the subconscious cook.
We've done all the heavy lifting.
Right. So how do you actually capture this breakthrough before it just vanishes into thin air?
The final execution step. The sources call it immediate capture.
Or, affectionately, the morning dump.
Right, the morning dump. You must keep a digital capture tool or a notebook right by your bed.
If you have a microscopic window, right?
Microscopic. The exact moment an insight hits you upon waking, you have to write it down immediately.
You can't even wait to make coffee.
No. Because your active logic, your default mode network, will boot up and quickly override and erase that fragile connection.
Just wash it away completely.
Gone.
So to neatly tie it all up, the sources provide this absolute formula.
Yes. Intense deadline plus absolute rest equals creative breakthrough.
Intense deadline plus absolute rest. It's beautiful.
It is. And this raises an important question.
Yeah.
Are we actually crippling our own potential and our own ingenuity by generously giving ourselves too much time on our next major projects?
We really might be. I mean, the core takeaway here for you listening is that the required catalyst for your next major project is not more time. It's significantly less.
Configure your constraint.
Configure it.
Mm-hmm.
Saturate your mind until it hits a wall, and then let your subconscious take over the heavy lifting while you literally just rest.
Tension management instead of time management.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over today.
Okay.
Think back to that mechanic. If an artificial 20-minute deadline can force the mind to solve a ghost electrical drain that would normally take all day,
Right.
what dormant, frustrating problem in your own life could you finally crack right now, just by giving yourself half the time you think you need and then simply walking away to take a nap?
That is the ultimate question.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of a creative tension. We encourage you to test this framework on your next big workflow. Just remember, shrink the jar, crank the vise, and let your brain do what it does best.